22, 21. So that'll go down, do the countdown thing. And we're live now, so we should be live right now. So I don't need this, since I'm not going to use it.
You're not doing that?
No, I don't, because I forgot. I don't have my things set up for that. We should. Who was loafing around, walking around, minding his own business, and I lassoed him into another IAEI News Live. So I am with David Williams.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings and
It's good to be here.
It's good to be here, yes.
It's good to be here joining you on this great show that you've provided for the association.
For the IAEI, yes, every Tuesday.
And all our great members that we have.
We have a lot of great members, and we are continuously growing.
Oh, yeah. I think Michigan this year has added 60 new members.
Really?
So
Wow.
far. I mean, we got
That's
a meeting coming
awesome.
up in December, so hope to get a few more.
Yeah, oh yeah, you absolutely will. And so we have a good, strong organization.
Yes.
And let me do this.
Rudy's done good with managing our organization, and
Oh, I agree.
it's got to be better.
Yeah, we've come a ways with regard to our strength of the organization from a membership perspective, and just from a purely financial perspective. We are very healthy organization, and now the focus has to be on education.
Oh, yeah. And I've been on the board for a number of years, and we've always stressed that the education is going to drive our membership.
Yes.
And without having good educational programs, your memberships are going to fail. And if you look at some of the chapters that excel, it's because they have good educational training opportunities for them.
Absolutely. So we've got Robert from Omaha.
Hey, Robert.
We got Felix Sandoval. He says it's still morning for him too.
In Colombia.
In Colombia, yes.
Hi, Felix.
Yeah, Colombia, South America, right?
Not Central.
Not Central. And we got David Engelhardt.
Hey, David.
So,
David's
well,
actually from Michigan.
Is
But he
he?
lives in Florida, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're from. He's from Michigan, but he lives in Florida.
Yeah.
And you never lose the Michigan flavor, right?
Flavor,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm not sure what part of Michigan. Hopefully he's a Michigan State fan and not a Michigan fan. But
No. No, he's either a Pitt or a Penn State fan.
oh, that's right. Everybody has
Or
to be,
Steelers, absolutely. Or Steelers or Pirates, absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so we are live here at the second draft meetings. This is the second week. So you weren't here last week, were you?
I was not. I
you
was
missed
home
it.
enjoying the cold weather in Michigan. Wasn't too bad though.
Is it getting colder?
It's we went camping the week before. Water was frozen.
Really?
Yeah, but it thawed out real quick and
Sure. Yeah, once
it
the sun
wasn't an
comes
issue.
up.
But it was chilly.
Lots of things going on. So last week, I know last Tuesday we went live, and I went live in the afternoon, if I'm not mistaken, because I was on panel 2 at the time. A lot of stuff happened on panel 2 with regard to the high frequency GFCI and the special purpose GFCI. Panel 2 met last week. We had panel 18 met.
Did they create a new definition for high frequency GFCI?
Yes, No, we didn't. I'll tell you what we did.
Okay.
So here's the thing. So what we had a definition proposed,
Okay.
but since what we did was it's still a Class A GFCI.
Okay.
Okay. It's still a Class A GFCI, but it has a type to it. So, for example, you know how you have the switch duty, right? We have an SWD, we have an HID for high intensity discharge. Is that right? High intensity discharge
Yep.
lights. So we have an HID breaker. Well, you have tamper resistant breakers, but we don't have defined
Tamper-resistant breakers?
Not breakers, receptacles.
Okay.
Tamper resistant receptacles. Yeah. So, but we don't have a definition.
Putting a lock on the PAM door.
Yeah, it's called
Tamper-resistant.
That's tamper-resistant. Too much coffee.
New
Too much
terminology,
coffee. Yeah, new terminology.
We just made up.
But we don't have defined terms for those because that's a marking on the breaker,
Okay.
right? So we did not put the definition for the HF. We put an informational note in 210.8 parent text on what the marking would mean, and we also put it in 210.8F. So the other thing we did was we added a note on GFCI to say it's a Class A GFCI. We have a E
Yeah.
GFCI, which those are special purpose GFCIs.
CD and E.
Yes.
And don't they have different trip ranges?
Yeah.
The C and D, or
Yeah,
like
and
a
different voltage applications
20
too.
milliamp?
20 milliamp, and like a Class C has to monitor the equipment grounding conductor.
Oh,
So it what it does now. So I don't need a ground fault to trip a Class C device. If I cut the equipment grounding conductor because it continuously monitors that, it will open as well.
oh, so if it's like if you lose your grounding conductor,
Yes.
it also is gone.
It'll recognize it and it'll open. So we did that.
Now the Class A's don't do that, do they?
No, Class A doesn't need an equipment grounding conductor at all. So, but it's at 4 to 6 milliamp,
Right.
right? So if current goes anywhere outside the path for the Class A, we will open. So you'll notice we did some changes there. We have the, what else? I'm trying to think. So we had the special purpose. We defined as we modified the definition of a special purpose GFCI, all that jazz. And then on we made some changes in 210.8 to accommodate some of the unwanted tripping items. Now the other thing that we did was in 210.12 we expanded to attics, and on the bathrooms,
Just the lighting.
just the lighting. I know, but I'm happy with anything that we can get. So
I remember, what was it for the 20 code at the NEC annual meeting? The membership voted to remove that list completely and just make
yes,
arc vaults and everything. And again, apparently it went back to, because it was like almost unanimous at that
Yeah.
point at that meeting at NFPA. And apparently it goes back to the code panel to make that decision. Correct?
yes, that's absolutely right.
And was that a close vote or not really? Or do you remember?
I can't remember exactly how close it was, but it was the same characters, and
Oh, and
you're
it
never going to
requires a
change them.
two-thirds vote.
And it requires 2/3. We didn't make 2/3 at the table. We got a few over simple majority, but we didn't get 2/3 at the. Actually, we got 2/3. Yeah, we did get 2/3, and because it went to ballot, and then the annual meeting they sent it back. I think that's what it was.
It's kind of interesting that the industry and all the NFPA members want it to go full board. But, the panel is resistant.
Yeah, we have our challenges on panel two. That's,
Any
that's
panel's
for
got
sure.
challenges,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But but at least we expanded to attics. That was pretty good. The other discussion that we had was around HVAC so they said in 2025 they're going to introduce a new coolant. It's not. I keep saying Freon, but everybody goes with a new refrigerant. Thank you. That they say is they have concerns about the hazards associated with emptying into the house, and it was used to justify an exception.
Now, that's not for carbon monoxide or nothing like that, is it?
No.
So what kind of hazards are we talking?
Fire and explosion. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, so you know what's funny is before I came here, Bill, if you're out there, my HVAC guy was at the house. We have one room in the house that we just can't get cool and can't figure out why. So he was just looking at the airflow and stuff, and he heard when he walked in. I was on a conference call, and he heard us talking about HVAC and GFCIs and stuff like that. So he says, "Hey," he says, "I got a question for you. I couldn't help it over here." And I was like, "Yeah." So he made the statement. He says, and I told him what we were talking about from compatibility. And he goes, "Oh man," he says, "I was just in training," and he said, "Wait till you hear about the new systems coming out in 2025 and the requirements for this new coolant." And he said, he didn't tell me what his issue was. He just said that in his mind, when he was in his training, he was thinking, why are we putting it in dwelling units? So I didn't get into the details. And then I get to the code panel, and they're talking about it. It made a lot of people uncomfortable on the code panel.
Especially when things are going to blow up.
Yeah, I was like, man, that's pretty aggressive there. So
wait a second. The HVAC industry has been fighting the GFCI protection.
Yeah.
But now they're wanting to put explosions.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing. In my opinion, on the HVAC side, the guys and gals over there, it's not that they just don't want GFCI. It's they want a solution that works.
And a lot of this is because of their leakage current.
Yeah. So and the standards are out of sync and whatnot. So then we introduce the HF, and we introduce the special purpose as options on the table, so that we can live with a level of ground fault protection and not just remove it completely. So I was, I was nervous about, from a code panel perspective, I was just nervous about how the approach and aggressiveness and things that would be said and whatnot. And I was pleasantly surprised that I think we're dealing with a group of individuals that want to, that are conscientious. They want a solution, but there are a lot of challenges on the table. So that's a good thing, I think. I was pleasantly surprised, but anyway.
So I got here Sunday and sat in panel 5 and a little bit of 13 and 7 and a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yes, on 5. So you sat in on 7. What did you see on 7?
Not a lot. I wasn't there that long. They were making some decent changes, but it was moving slower than what I had seen in the other panels, so I didn't stay that long.
You know what's funny is when you're not on the panel, it seems slow, but when you're on the panel, if you're totally engrossed in all of those changes, you are constantly trying to keep up, So it seems like it goes faster, I think, when you're sitting on the panel, but when you're watching, it's like watching a very slow tennis game. One love. So but yeah, so panel 5 was exciting on the copper clad steel.
They took quite a bit of discussion on that.
It sure did. There was a lot of data. There were a lot of information went through the code making panel, and they had a presentation. They had a lot of discussion. In fact, I wish I would have timed it because it went for a long period of time, and then they said, okay, we're going to go to lunch, and when we come back, we're going to vote, which I thought was a good choice because...
I think it is, because you get a chance the members to discuss it amongst themselves, and...
Absolutely.
It's nice.
And Robert was saying, hello, Felix, David, and David Williams. Robert from Omaha, greetings. Look, I can even send a heart. Look at that. See the hearts going up?
Oh, yes.
Yep. Remember to subscribe too, guys, because we're going to be going live. What I'd like to do this week, we have a lot of IAEI members. IAEI is on each code making panel. Yep. We have 2 people on each panel. I would love to get a few of them and just randomly go live and get their thoughts on what's going on the panel. I was joking the other day. I said we should have like a okay, everybody, this is a pregame, before the code panel meetings, which we can do a pregame on panel 10. On panel 10, we got panel 10 coming up.
Actually, with panel 10, we've got myself and Doug Smith from Utah, but there's also 2 other enforcers that are from Nebraska, Craig Thalen and Clint Hansen, and we all work together pretty good. And then also we got the 2 IBW guys, which Rich Lofton from Albany and Jason Doty from Albany.
That's right, yes.
Even though they're both from Albany, they're about 3,000 miles apart. One's in Oregon and one's in New York.
New York, yeah.
But the 6 of us work together pretty good. Yeah. And it's a benefit to having additional enforcers on our code panels, for sure.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
When I first started being on a code panel since the 2008 code, it was impressive to see how the code panels treat the enforcers, because we're the ones that actually are seeing how the code is being implemented.
Sure.
You got engineers that see it on paper and this is what we're doing, But when you actually have to apply the code or enforce the code, it's a totally different ballgame.
It is, and I think, you know what it's almost like? It's like the educators. Like, I know Jason and crew teach.
Right.
I teach. You teach.
I teach, yeah.
And when you look at the language and you're trying to say, okay, now let's look at what it says, and then you're trying to help somebody understand it. When you're looking at the words, you're going, wait a second, that doesn't make sense, you know. I was going through, on one of these IAEI News Lives, I was going through 210, and I recognized there was a problem in 210. And then 230, the stuff that we're going to talk about in 230 this week.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. So 230.82, 230.4, which is now what used to be 230.2, 230.40, and 230.71.
Wait, what about 46? 230.46?
What was 230.46? I can't remember.
Supply side taps.
Oh, yeah.
Can't
yeah.
forget that one.
Yeah, I can't forget that one. So what's funny is, okay, so that's a good example.
And 230.70.
230.70, yeah.
Getting rid of 230.85.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
the emergency
absolutely.
disconnect, but
Yep.
it's not going away.
No.
Just moving it to 230.70.
That's right. But what was interesting was, like, I was reading 230.82 on what's permitted on the line side of the service disconnect.
Yeah.
And the stuff, the line side tap, the power distribution blocks are not in the list. I'm like, well, wait a second. Well, why aren't they in the list? So then we had to change. I put a public comment in to add those items from that into 230.82, which I think that is going to survive. But when I started looking at the list, and when we say in there, so it says you can put a service disconnect ahead of a service disconnect, and I was like, I don't get this, and I still don't get it. I can't wait to the debate, but I just don't understand it.
You could have 6 means of disconnect, and if you connect a service disconnect, it would be ahead of the other service disconnect, right?
But it's a service disconnect. And that's in 230.40 that tells you what you can tap into service entrance conductors. Mm-hmm. So we have 230.40. We have 230.4, which says you can pull a new service to certain equipment. So I still struggle with it, and I think so out of all of that, I am happy with the fact that we're going to establish a task group so that next cycle we get it right.
Good.
So I'm happy with that.
It'd be nice to get some of it right now, but there's a lot to develop.
And honestly, I mean, there are some people that are just nervous. I call them nervous Nellies anyway. So, yeah. But I understand we don't want unintended consequences. And in my opinion, I'm sitting there thinking, unintended consequences. We have task groups. That's what we're for. We're supposed to be reading this stuff before we sit down.
Right.
How can you have unintended consequences if you're reading it, unless you just don't understand it?
But it's easy to do. You know, we're writing the code, we're into it, we think of it in one direction, all of a sudden we forget. Oh yeah, we forgot about that. Similar to what we did in, was it 240.24 regarding bathrooms? You know, we changed it to...
Yeah.
We used to be able to put them in commercial bathrooms, but not dwelling units. Well, we changed that in the 23's code cycle.
Right.
But then we forgot about, what about all those existing panel boards that are out there in bathrooms?
Oh, that's right, yeah. Now you can't add an overcurrent device to it, because it doesn't say you can't put a panel board in a bathroom. It says you can't put a breaker or an overcurrent device in a bathroom.
Well, and you got those existing panel boards that are there.
Yeah.
And can you add another overcurrent device to go to something else? Based on the wording, it's not.
Yeah.
We did put an exception for the 26 code, but we also probably need a TIA for the 23 code.
Yeah, I'm good with that. David Engelhardt says, solar line side tap a service disconnect. Oh, David, yes. If you look at 705.11, that PV disconnect for the PV system is and must be listed for suitable for use as service equipment. So it's a service disconnecting means. If it's service equipment, it's a service disconnect.
When you look at the conductors, do they have overcurrent protection?
No. Nope.
So, and they're coming from the utility.
Yes, they are.
So they're service conductors. So,
yeah.
And, you know, I had this issue before I got on panel 10, or just before I came on panel 10 for the 20 code cycle. And, you know, we had the requirements for power distribution blocks had to be listed for the available fault current.
Right.
And we didn't have it for other things. And I'm looking at this small service where they put these little pressure splicing devices in it, which it was packed already. I'm thinking, what about that thing? I said if the power distribution box, which is to me is a pretty substantial connection,
Yep.
has to be rated for have a short circuit current rating for the available fault current.
Oh man,
What about these piercing devices?
that is going to be.
And I remember I said, so I called Vince Saporita and I talked to him. I said, this doesn't make sense. Well, actually, at first I called Tom Lichtenstein.
Yeah.
He said, no, those are just fittings. They don't have to be listed, rated for that. I said, it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
So then I called Vince Saporita. He says, we had an issue where split bolts pulled apart under the fault current.
Yep.
So he ended up taking some videos that were done in St. Louis at their facility there, which
Yep.
I used to go there.
Sure. Yeah.
And it showed that they were pulling apart, I think, around 12,000 amps of fault current, which isn't much.
It's not much at all. Not much at all. In fact, Kevin Arnold has a photograph that he showed split bolts in a trough, and that's our issue. So I was talking to some other friends of mine, which will go unidentified, unnamed, but that individual said that they did their homework, and they said they contacted and talked with utilities.
So we're going to take a utility standard, which doesn't have to comply with the safety
code
provisions that we have already.
And if you think about when utilities are using those, they're overhead lines. They're those like right before the weatherhead. They'll have those,
So
and they wrap
in the
them.
drip loop
and
there.
Exactly, and they all fly free. But what we do is we put them in a trough, or we put them in a panel board, in a switchboard.
In the panel board and switchboards where they got really no room to move.
Exactly.
And something's got to give.
Yeah. So what Kevin showed was there was a fault inside of the trough cover, and it burned the whole side of the house because it pulled out, and now you have energized conductors. So
Yeah.
I just I don't know. Andrew Casnay, you're the man. He says get it right. I like that. And Travis Holderman, thanks for joining us, Travis. We appreciate you and your viewership. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you're an IEI member too. And hit the hearts. Look at that. I'm going to hit some more hearts. I'm going to hit a smiley face and then a party. Look at that. I love it.
And your thumbs up, how's that?
You know what? No, I can't do a thumbs up here.
That's all right.
I can add a thumbs up, but I figured out how. So I'm on a new system, and right now I'm hybrid, so I can't see the comments here. But I've got to get a user ID and password off of IAEI because I go to Restream right now. And right now, I'm going directly to Facebook, I think, and I'm going to Restream, which Restream sends it over to YouTube. But once I can log in, then I'll be able to do the thumbs up. I can do the music, the sound.
Is the YouTube live right now as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I'm looking on YouTube for comments.
Gotcha.
And David says, yeah, what's going to happen during a fault? That's exactly right. And even the PV guys and gals were not, when we had the debates and discussions about that 705.11, and they kept saying, well, we're the utility, we're supplying power, not under a fault condition.
No.
Not under a fault condition.
And when you think about that drip loop that's there, those conductors, if there's a fault, they can move and they'll shake.
Exactly.
I mean,
And that
why
was-
are we using a utility standard for something that is
exactly.
we're dealing with
freaking right.
safety?
I
And we
agree.
all know there's no
Yep.
overcurrent protection on those service
Yep.
conductors as they come in.
Yep.
So hopefully we get it.
That's going to be a
We make
debate.
success.
So
Oh my
that'll be a
gosh.
debate. This is like pregame. This is pregame. This is like talking to the boxers and the
It's almost like talking about the
Super Bowl.
or in a soccer game, the penalty kicks at the end of the game. I mean, it's a huge one.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yep. So that's going to be a debate. I think Article 230. I'm not dying on that hill. And I told Nathan Phillips, our chair, that I said, look, I put public inputs in or public comments for 230.82, for 230.40, for 230.4. I can't wait for the discussion on why we pull a service. You pull a service to an optional standby system. We have in two service to an option
you can have an additional service.
for the optional standby, but the definition of an optional standby system tells you it can't be a service.
Right.
And 702 tells you it can't be a service. It has to be all on site.
Yeah, those got to come out of that.
It was the task group I'm okay with a reject, but tell me why I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, and what am I doing wrong, so that whenever I talk to these people out here, I can say, hey, look, here was, because I developed most of those public comments from the IAEI News Live sessions and in the chat boxes.
Yeah.
So I put those comments in, and I shared them with everybody, and we had the discussion. I can remember going back and forth with Michael Hofkin on a couple of those, and I'm like, well, I'm going to see what the task group says.
On the service disconnect regarding bus bars.
Yes, yeah.
But, that definition of bus bar that we have in Article 100 just applies to 393, right?
Right, yeah. So
we
I think
really
we're covered
don't have something that's saying, is a bus bar a conductor? My thought it would be.
Oh, heck yeah. I think anything that carries current is a conductor. Even if it's unintentional. Right?
Or for fault current.
Yeah, or for fault current, yeah. So I think we're going to have a good discussion on Article 230. And I put a new part in 230, if it's part 8, I think. I suggested to take the stuff from 705.11 and put it in Article 230 for interconnected systems, because it's under the purview of Panel 10. Mm-hmm. And then now what's not under the purview of Panel 10 is how do you calculate, because when we do load calculations, when we say size of the service and you do a load calculation, we base it upon loads. But when you're dealing with a source, you have to base it on the source current. So I pointed to 705 on how to determine those. So we'll see where that goes. And then because I know Panel 4 put language in. Hopefully Panel 10 puts language in. And then the Correlating Committee will have to look at and see what they want to do.
I see that 110.16, which I think is
that's a big change.
A great change this cycle.
Yeah.
They reference that you have to put the amount of incident energy.
Oh, yeah.
So I talked to...
or PPE, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I talked to Jason Doty, and he said when he's dealing with 240.67 and 240.87,
yeah,
instead of having the 1200, what if we just put the incident energy?
Or
wouldn't that make sense?
Say
or
you
both
put
for now, and maybe next cycle go
next,
to just...
next cycle so now, once you have the labeling...
We're already waiting for next cycle.
Oh, I'm telling you, we're working on public inputs. I'm drooling. So once you have all of the equipment labeled with an arc flash value, then, in my opinion, and in fact, Roy Sparks brought this up in first draft.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can say, you shall require an arc reduction technology when the incident energy is above a specific now
40 cal.
Not 40.
No,
you want it much lower than that. I'd say 8 calories. I mean,
Okay.
did you ever see an 8-calorie event?
No.
Oh, man.
I'll
show you a 4-calorie event.
Unfortunately, I'm not that savvy.
I have videos of 4-calorie
the
events.
different calorie events
Yes.
that might be there, and what magnitude that would be.
Oh, man. Calorie event. And then, but typically what I've seen many heavy industrials, they'll say, look, we have dress up to 8. And then beyond 8, we're dressing for 40. So when you design a power system, you're trying to keep it within the 8, the first level. And the reason they do that is to keep the dress simple. Mm-hmm. If I told you, okay, if I made it variable and I had to teach you 7, 8 or more ways to dress, it would be more complicated and more opportunities for mistakes.
Sure.
But if I say, look, we're dressing for 8 and we're dressing for 40, if you're above 8, you're in a 40 cal outfit, I teach you 2 ways to dress, and I keep it simple. So that's what most facilities will do. Now, and then that cutoff point will be the debate, right? Is it 40? Is it 8? Is it 4? And I'm sure the IBEW guys are going to say, keep it less than 1.6. Okay?
Keep me safe.
Keep me safe. Yes, I don't want to get burned.
Yeah.
Because a 40 cal outfit is a moon suit.
That's where the enforcers and the IBEW, we're there to make sure everybody is safe.
Yeah.
And that's where we have very similar experiences. Most inspectors are also electricians in the past, and not all of them, because there are some multi-hat inspectors out there, but they realize the benefits of having that.
Casnay says 4, 8, or 12, And Andrew Casney says 8 is preferred. Yeah, I think 8 is where it's at. I agree with you 100%.
That could be tough for the panel to absorb at this point.
Well, now you can't do it yet because we'll have the labeling in 110.16, and then next cycle we should put a task group in to say, how do we want to handle, and is it just 240, 87, and 67? Remember, that says 1200 amps and above or 1000 amps and above. Do you just say if you have a switch, maybe you have a labeling for switchboard, a labeling for a panel board, and a labeling for switch gear, and 3 different values that you'll accept at each of those levels.
That makes sense. I think we could put something in 240, 67, 87 this cycle. There's a proposal to go to like 1,000 amps.
Yeah.
Instead of 1,200 amps. What if we just kept the 1,200 and put a calorie level in there? It wouldn't be considered new material unless the panel determines it's new material.
Yeah.
And they could still nitmam it.
Yeah.
So I think we should
say 1,200 amps, or when the incident energy is greater than 8 calories or 12 calories or something like that.
I mean, even go higher at this point just to give us a start to make it work.
Yeah.
I think it could go. Because
you think it could fly?
I don't think because we're already acting on that section. So it's not really not new material at that point. Because they can always nitmam it later on.
Yeah. You know what? I think I'm buying what you're selling. I'm worried about 40.
Yes.
I'm worried about the 40. Though.
Okay, well,
because when I think about energy,
see, that's how much I know about that.
Andrew Casney, what would you do? What number would you use if you were going to do what he's saying this cycle? Say 240, 87 and 240, 67. 240, 87 and 67 says, or let's say 240, 87, if a breaker can be adjusted to 1200 amps or higher, you need to put an arc reduction maintenance switch or arc zone selective interlocking, one of those options. To add into that same discussion to say, or the electrical equipment has a calorie rating of, what value or higher. So that would be any equipment if the equipment has that, but then which overcurrent device? That's going to be the other challenge. Which is because now you've gone from a 1200 amp breaker, which is easy to identify, and then if you identify an assembly, which circuit breaker, you would have to identify which overcurrent device would need to have an arc reduction technology. That's the challenge. But what we have to do is over a beer, right?
Got my interest now.
Got my interest now. We can sit down out here in the sun and come up with some language that we might be able to draw past.
We got a couple days before that gets gets deep.
20 calories. 20 calories or 8. So that would be a compromise. Do you want to go to 40?
No, I just threw a
20,
number out.
Yeah, 20 would be 20 would be interesting. What would be good, Andrew, is if we tried to look at 70E and look at the PPE, the brakes, or maybe even look at some personal protective equipment. I think it's worth a discussion.
Sure.
I like where you're thinking. I like it.
Again, Jason Doty is the one that kind of is brought it to my attention early this morning.
Is he here?
No.
Okay.
I called him. He called me yesterday, but didn't get back to him until early this morning.
Awesome.
So, of course, I woke up at 4:30.
I woke up at 3:30, man. I'll tell you what, I can't get off the East Coast time, which is not bad.
No, it's not.
I get a lot of work done in the morning. I go live in the morning, stuff like that. So, but I get some work done, so that works.
I did Wordle at 4:20.
Yeah, dress options at 20. That worked.
That was good.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, even when I went the other night, we went out to dinner, and we were there late. I didn't get to bed till like midnight. Oh yeah, because we came back and then we were sitting over there by the fire pit and talking, solving problems till about midnight. And then I went up to bed and I'm thinking, okay, now I'll sleep in. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the next morning. I got 4 hours of sleep and I couldn't. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But
During the first draft, I had a public input about revising the term overcurrent protected device branch circuit. Myself, along with Palmer Hickman and a few others, did as well. And I couldn't get much traction from the panel because they were concerned about all the ramifications because that term is used so many places in the code.
Yeah.
So in between cycles, I did some research, and actually Nathan Phillips, our chair, created a task group for us to review. And because of the coordinating committee's task group, I really didn't get that started until like July, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we met quite a bit during that time frame.
Sure.
You were on that task group as well. And we reviewed, well, I did the searches for overcurrent, and there's about 1,200 spots.
Your spreadsheet was the biggest spreadsheet I've ever seen.
And like, wow, this is crazy. So our task group went through every instance in the code where that terminology was used and determined whether it was correct or incorrect. And quite often it wasn't correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're thinking, wow, instead of talking about the overcurrent protected device, they were calling it overcurrent protection or something.
Oh yeah, the overcurrent device.
Yeah, it was all over the board how screwed up. And it was really interesting because in the current definition of a branch circuit overcurrent protected device, it says it can be used for branch circuits, feeders, or services.
Right.
Well, if you look in Article 230, there is no branch circuit overcurrent protected device.
No.
So we had some code update classes in Michigan, and we've had other chapter meetings. And I would ask them, I says, you got a service disconnect on your panel board. How many people think you could use a branch circuit overcurrent device for that service disconnect?
Sure.
Nobody would.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Why would you do that?
Why would you do
it's
that?
for branch circuits.
That's right.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we finally, and it was really weird during our first meeting of our task group. We agreed to so much.
Oh,
it was like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
We agreed to the terminology, calling it overcurrent protected device and using the OCPD.
Yep.
And we agreed to creating another section or having modifiers, such as if it's a branch circuit. For a branch circuit, you can add that.
Yep.
If it's a feeder, you'd have that. Services or supplementary.
Yep.
It's all there. So
yeah.
we did Danish Zia from
UL. He was our so Donish was the one who was initially really against it.
He voted against the committee input.
Yes, he did.
What?
Yeah.
I said, who would vote against the committee input?
I know.
And I didn't think it would have much traction, but luckily the task group
and he agreed, and he helped. So he helped us navigate. And what I think it was his idea. To create a separate section.
It was, and
and
we asked him later, and I know one of our task groups, Donish was on vacation, wasn't able to attend. Some people were saying, what happened to Donish? What made him flip and totally on board with this all of a sudden? And I ended up asking him. He said it was because of the ability to create the 240.7 that we're going to add that includes all the different types of overcurrent protection devices that can be used for those installations for services.
Right.
Well, for any of those.
Right, and the challenge, the challenge was that you don't want a supplemental overcurrent device, you don't want a motor circuit protector, and I think that's the next step. We have to have really good, solid definitions for each of those as well. And I think we've got supplementary. I'm not sure if we have motor circuit protector.
I don't believe we do.
I don't think we do. So we have to look at.
Is that terminology even used?
Yeah.
In the code?
In 4, it should be in 430.
Isn't that
or is that the instantaneous only?
Overcurrent protected device?
I can't remember what the term is. I call them motor circuit protectors, but we'd have to make sure that whatever terminology we use to identify when you have instantaneous only, and then overload is separate, that whatever that device is called back there in 430, and I'm sure somebody here is going to fill us in what that is, but then we have to make sure we have those clearly defined.
And again, some of those terminology may need to be revised.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right.
I think the code panel seems to be real receptive to trying to get it right.
Yeah, and so I was happy.
Not stuck in the mud.
Yes, I was happy with the response on the task groups, and all of the other code panels are going now. So I was sitting in panel 5, and I was sitting in 18 and a few others where they're looking at where are they using the term, and I see that global that you put in, or from the correlating committee, I think it was, that basically says, hey, let's look at our use of our terms. Although there was one panel that, in my opinion, got it all wrong. They had branch circuit overcurrent protective device all spelled out, okay? So what their motion was to remove overcurrent protective device and put OCPD. So it says branch circuit OCPD, and I'm like, well, no.
But it's not being used to that. It's probably used as a service.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's where, when we did that as our task group, we went through every one and looked at that. Mm-hmm. And we spoon-fed them what they should do. And I thinking there's so many of them at each panel, I have to look at that.
I think it's on
Let
panel...
me know which panel.
I think it's on panel 18. If I'm almost positive it was on 18, because I went over to Bob Fahey and I said,
Okay.
look, I think you guys got to reopen this, because you just say OCPD, and then what I said was say OCPD protecting the branch circuit.
There you go.
That's an appropriate way. And then they had already acted on it, and I think it was the gentleman from NFPA who was the liaison. He goes, the correlating committee will fix that. I said, no, correlating committee can't fix that. I don't know. I mean,
that's going to be tough debate for the correlating committee.
Yeah, I said, I think the correlating committee can say, let's take branch circuit OCPD and just say OCPD. But the way the language read, it said that the branch circuit had to be the rating of the overcurrent device. I said, interrupting rating? Sure, sir. Well, what rating are you talking about? You should say the ampere rating of the OCPD protecting the branch circuit. Yeah. That would be the proper language, but the way they wrote it, and they never went back and fixed it. I did my duty. I shared my thoughts on that, and the staff liaison said, "Oh no, the correlating committee will fix it."
Again, we're good panels. We make mistakes, just like we're all human.
We're all human, but I was frustrated, so I was mad.
Panel 1 did.
I was mad. I'm still mad. Now I'm getting madder.
Just like panel 1 did with the definition of outlet.
Oh yeah. Oh, did you see? Yeah. So that's now. Here's the thing, though. I talked to somebody. They changed the definition of an outlet, and they said that an outlet is something that is where the power is taken to serve equipment. So that means a receptacle outlet is no longer. It says what? It says where the branch circuit conductors. A point on the wire system where the branch circuit conductors are connected to utilization equipment, and a receptacle is not utilization equipment. So now, but we
do have a definition of
right. So that was what they said. They said there's a receptacle outlet definition, right, and there's a lighting outlet definition. So maybe that makes it okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I talked to one individual from that panel, and he says we've already talked to, amongst others, we're all going to vote it down and revert back to the 23 language.
Oh, so it won't even have a...
That's what they're thinking right now.
All right, that's good.
But I noticed that in 11020, do you see what they did there?
Brian Kroll, how'd he go? Thanks for joining. What'd they do in 130? You said 130?
11020.
Oh, 110 to 20. What is it?
Recondition.
No, it's... Oh, I saw that. Oh, so I you know what? I will tell you my issue with this.
Now,
and the way they wrote it says, shall be permitted where specified.
Yeah. So in the past, it was shall be permitted except where prohibited.
Right.
So now, you don't have to put it where you can't use it. You only put it where you can use it.
Well, but we do both. Sense. We do both.
Well,
we have two levels. The style manual says you have to do both. You have to say where you can't and where you can.
And that was mostly because of the language we had in 11020 previously.
Yep.
But now that since that's changed,
so here's my question. It's going
to be an interesting one.
If I have switchgear, which you're permitted to recondition, and it says shall be permitted where specified. Reconditioned equipment shall be permitted where specified.
Elsewhere in the code.
Okay, so in 408, we haven't voted on yet, but it's going to say, based upon the direction of
the task group,
the correlating committee, that the language, the correlating committee put a note in, and it says the language has to read, installation of the following reconditioned shall not be permitted.
that was the Core Lane Committee's recommendation.
Yeah.
And again,
But if I have switchgear and I don't say that I'm permitted to recondition switchgear in place, I say back in 408 that I'm permitted to install it. So I'm no longer allowed. Well, we haven't gotten there yet, but I would not be allowed to recondition it even in place. I would have to remove it and then install it for it to be permitted, because that says where it's. In my opinion, they should just say what you're not allowed to do, and not tell you what. Because the moment you create a list that says, okay, here's what is you permitted and here's what's not permitted, the moment you come across something that's not on that list, now what do you do?
yeah.
That when you start creating, now if you said, I'm going to just tell you what you can't do, then anything that's not on that list is permitted to be reconditioned and you follow the rules.
I kind of like it better this way.
You like it that way?
Because if it doesn't show up in the code, you
Yeah.
can't recondition it.
Okay.
So you have to specifically say
And it
that
has
you
to be
can
installed.
that it can be reconditioned.
Yeah. And I like the permitted language there.
Yeah, I think it's.
I
good
like
there.
that. I like that.
And I think
there.
the style manual is going to need to change based on this.
Based on that, yeah.
And whether they can make that change.
I don't know. But now I was in panel 18, and so the panel, what panel 18 did was they took, you know how the style manual has an A and a B?
Mm-hmm.
They put an A and a B, and they said A, since they didn't have anything for A, they said future. And then they put a B, and they had the list of what's not permitted.
312.3 did the same thing.
Yeah, because the style
They put
manual says
reserve.
you have to have an A and a B.
That was an example. It doesn't really tell you
Yeah.
you have to have it. If you
There-
have an article that has permissive and not permitted,
Right.
you would use the A and B. If you just have what is not permitted, you would just say it's not permitted. You
not
don't need an A and a B because
I know, and that point was tried to be made, but you know who said it had to be there? NFPA staff.
don't give me names later. I want to find that
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
and I think that one could be easily resolved to the usability
To the-
task group and the Core Lane Committee.
Good,
Get it
good, good,
fixed.
good. Yeah,
So
that'll be good. But and that's, you know what that tells you? More of the process. So we do work here on code panels. We have a first draft, we have a second draft, and in between, after the meetings, the correlating committee is going to look at all the panel stuff, and they're going to drive for correlation. And they can make little things like this. They can say, look, you have an A that says reserved. We're just going to get rid of that A since it's not there, and we're going to keep things consistent across all the panels. And that's a good thing. I think that's...
And again, it's a correlation. Again, we used to be called the Technical Correlating
Right.
Committee, and they removed the word technical, so we can't do anything that's technical now. But sometimes you really have to think about using some technical changes to make it correct.
Right, right.
And but
So Ying says 321. I'm not sure what that is.
321,
321.
that's calories.
No, he must have put PPE at 3. I can't remember the question. I did ask a question. Remember,
Could
I
be-
said
could it be
somebody out there is
312?
going to say that.
312. No. Yeah.
3,
I'm
2,
not sure.
1. I'm not sure if that is. That's a good question. I gotta.
What is 321?
What is 321? Ying, you have to tell us.
Yeah, we're very curious.
We're
now.
curious now, and if it's a good answer, hopefully it's not a bad account.
So, 230.85.
230.85. Yes.
So, it's been an enforcement nightmare, if you ask me,
Yeah.
because we had the 3 different types of disconnecting means that you could use.
Right.
One was a meter disconnect,
Yep.
which I remember I think it was for the 2020 code. We were online,
Yeah.
and we did an online search of what a meter disconnect was.
Yeah.
And we found out Google doesn't know what it is
Nope.
either.
I tried to add a definition, and we rejected it.
Yeah, and so in most cases, a meter disconnect is on the utility. It's ahead of the service point.
Correct.
So
Why is it even in the code?
Why would we put it in there? I don't understand that one.
Yeah.
And then the other one was other listed disconnects, and you could just say, well, it's a service disconnect, but it's not a service disconnect. So then you're grounding
Yeah.
at both locations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so what we chose to do during the first draft stage
Mm-hmm.
was to delete 23085, move it to 23070,
Right.
and put the requirement in there about the emergency disconnect
Yep.
for 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Yep.
And again, it's only the service disconnect, and that's what we did in Michigan when in our adoption for their 23 code. We make it just the service disconnect. We don't give you the other options, and every time you give people options, it gets screwed up.
It does,
Oh
absolutely.
my gosh.
The transformer. I was like, well, no, you can do it you can do it that
Wherever
way,
you
but it's
bond it.
commonly done in the transformer.
Yeah, wherever the system bonding jumper is installed,
Yeah.
that's where the grounding electrical
Right.
connection has to be made as well.
Yeah, and if you move it over to the panel board, then you have a supply side bonding jumper, right, between the
Yes.
transformer and the panel board, there's specific rules for that.
You would have a supply side bonding jumper no matter what.
Well, yeah. Well, what would you call that conductor between? It would be the neutral. The neutral conductor would be your bonding with the transformer. What is it then?
No, the connection is
The
your
tra-
system bonding jumper
Your
that
system,
bonds
right.
the neutral bar to the enclosure.
And that's in the
or-
panel board.
Or the transformer, the X of O to the enclosure. That's your system bonding jumper.
Right.
Okay. Then you have the supply side bonding jumper that goes between them, which is your
Yeah, that's
fault
what I said.
current.
Yeah, that would be your supply. Yeah, but in both cases, you're saying that's both cases. That's the supply side bonding jumper.
you still need a
yeah, you're
supply
right.
side bonding
You're
jumper
right.
no matter
yeah,
what.
no matter what. Yeah, yep. Yeah, that was just a little lesson in separately derived systems. I knew that. I was just trying to pull it out of you. Boy, you're tough.
250-30. Well, I served 3 cycles on panel 5.
I know you did.
So that
Yeah.
helped a little bit.
250 dot what? 230 dot what?
250-30.
250.30. That is sizing
Separate drive systems.
Separately derived systems. Yeah. Boy,
Good
he
spot
knows
to
his
put it.
stuff, man. That's why I was sitting in on panel 5 because I don't know those sections that well. So what else? So we started down at 230 something, right? And
230-70 or
230
85. We talked about that.
230 to 85. Yep. Services. Oh, okay. So now we have panel boards. There's the other one. Marking of the short circuit current rating on panel boards and switchboards. That I don't know. I don't think we got public comments on that. But I know Paul and I had a discussion on that one because we were going back and forth, and he's thinking switchgear, which comes with a marking. So what we were trying to say was, look, they take out a breaker and they put a different breaker in, and now it changes the short circuit current rating of that, which is, if the design engineer said, look, I want 65K short circuit current ratings or 22K, the moment you take a breaker out, even if the fault current is less than 10K, they're designing it for a future growth.
Right.
And now you may have more fault current in the future, and now your equipment, all your short circuit current ratings are kaput.
But most panel boards usually have, like you say, a recipe
Yeah.
that if you use this service disconnect and these branch breakers, that it has a series rating of the higher amount.
Now that's the series rating.
Right.
So, and there's a marking requirement for series ratings. But for just the short circuit current
Is
rating,
it
there's
required
not.
for a series rating even if it's not done by engineering?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to say it's series rated because those are specific breakers that are tested together.
Right.
And then if you just said, look, I'm not going to do series ratings, I'm going to do a fully rated panel. I'm going to have a 22K breaker main and all 22K breakers.
Why would you do that?
Oh, a lot of people do it. And especially in
wouldn't they just-
industrials.
Why wouldn't they just use the series ratings?
Because if I need to do selective coordination, a series rated system will not selectively coordinate because they will both open on that short circuit current. Yeah, you can't do selective coordination at all on that series rated system. Ain't gonna happen.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, and then also the other reason, if you have motor contribution. If you have downstream motors and motor contribution that exceeds more than 1% of the downstream rated device, you can't do series rated systems. And that
Do
is
we
a
spell that out
commonly missed
anywhere?
in 240 dot what's the series rated? 240 dot I can't remember the numbers.
I can't either on that one.
But in the series rated system, they tell you if your motor contribution is greater than 1% of the downstream interrupting rating, so if it's a 10,000 amp interrupting rating, 1% of that, your motor contribution can't exceed that. And a lot of people forget that. Hey, we got Jake Riddle.
Well, Jake, I
Look.
thought you were here, Jake. I
Look,
haven't seen you though.
Yeah,
He was here last week.
I saw Jake. In concerns to the document restructuring, would 2029 public inputs be submitted on old code? Oh, this is a good question. So, Jeff Sargent, Jake, I think it was Jeff Sargent made this comment that when you do a public input for next cycle, they're going to do it not on the future structure. Yeah, he was here and he was sitting in panel 12. Jake was sitting in panel 12, and it was good to see him. Good to see him. I know we were sitting out on the veranda over there and enjoying and partaking in the festivities of chatting about code and all that jazz. So thanks for joining in, Jake. 24086. Thank you. I should know that number So if you scroll down on that one, so in 24086, if you look at motor contribution, series ratings shall not be used in the following: where motor circuits are connected between the higher rated, and it says where the sum of the motor full load currents exceeds 1% of the interrupter rating of the lower. And that is so commonly missed. Oh my God. I did a program down in, it was in Alabama. And I was talking short circuits. So
for Donnie Cook.
For my buddy, for my mentor, Donnie Cook, and you're my mentor too. So I did a program on short circuit calculations, and then I cover interrupting ratings, short circuit current ratings, and because I'm hitting interrupting ratings, I hit 24086. So I get done with the presentation, and I was standing over on the side, and this guy walks up to me. Donnie brings him over, and he says, he goes, "I think I have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He goes, "Well," he says, I do series ratings all the time." He says, "And I design car washes." I'm like, "Well, you know."
Oh,
what was funny was I said, "Well, there's not that many motors in a car wash." He looked at me and he goes, "Really?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "It's nothing but motors."
Yeah. The motor control centers for those car washes is huge.
It's huge. Now, so then my next thing was, I said, well, wait a second. If you're on variable frequency drives, which
Those are
24086 doesn't account for variable frequency drives at all. Which
could it?
Here's my thought process. If you have a variable frequency drive and you have no bypass on it, if you have a bypass, then you could take the variable frequency drive out of the picture, do cross the line, and now I can have motor contribution. But if I am solely on a variable frequency drive and I can't bypass it, you're not going to have motor contribution. So we don't account for that in 24086. I think maybe next cycle, we missed it. Yeah, and I didn't think about that until it was too late this cycle, because I was doing an IAEI program and we were talking about it, and it just like dawned on me that, wait a second, I think it was somebody made a comment about motor contribution. I'm like, you know what, you're right. If I have a variable frequency drive.
Yeah, it's something that we need to consider. I'm not sure how we can make that happen.
I don't know.
The wording, at least.
The wording, yeah. And so you would have to, somehow you have to account for it. And it has to be all of the motors. Or where it says 1% of the total motor contribution minus
a variable frequency
those
drive.
motors that are on variable frequency drives. Or something like that.
But still, there's probably, even though if you have a variable frequency drive, you still have some contribution, I would think.
No.
Really?
Because the VFD manages the motor.
Oh, okay.
And then if you lose power, if you have a short circuit, it's not going to backfeed up through because it's managing the motor itself.
And I would think in car washes, most of those probably are variable frequency drives.
Well, so in that case, he was like, no, he doesn't have VFDs.
Really?
But I agree with you, because VFDs, especially on those I would think a heavy usage of motors from an energy profile and efficiency perspective, you would want VFDs to control the speed of things and all that jazz, right? But poor power factor, just because, I mean, it depends on the drive you buy, but you could have power factor concerns, but yeah, that's something we don't, and I've not done a public comment into that, because to your point, I think I've got a lot of homework to do to understand.
Yeah.
When is there a bypass on all of them? Because I know I've seen the bypass for maintenance where you can take that out, put another one in, and things like that, which would be servicing, not reconditioning, unless you took the drive apart. But yeah, no, that's another area that I think we could explore in Article 240.
I heard a guy say yesterday, and I've said it numerous times as well, the more you see what's in the code, the more problems you see that are there.
Yeah.
And I mean, for so many years, you overlook a section because you think you know exactly what it means.
Yeah, no.
And they say, don't memorize the sections, go back and read them every time.
Oh, you are absolutely right. Because even like, 210.52. I'm like, we were on this program, and I said 210.52a. If you read the words, you have to put extra receptacles in every kitchen if you're following the rules, because it says what you count and what you don't count as wall space. And so we made a change and we just introduced it in 2023. So we created the problem, and I can remember one gentleman at the panel. He's like, and so they first rejected my public comment, and he says he goes, Tom, this is what we've been doing this for years. We never put extra receptacles. I'm like, well, you did until the 2023 code cycle, because it says
section
A. Okay, in every kitchen, family room, dining room, living room, parlor, all that good stuff, and it says wall space. That do not have here it is. It says, as used in this section, a wall space shall include the following. This is what is wall space. Mm-hmm. Okay, fixed cabinets that do not have countertops, any space 2 foot or more in width, and unbroken along the floor line by doorways and similar openings, and unbroken by fixed cabinets that do not have countertops. So if it's broken by a fixed cabinet that does have a countertop, you have to count it as wall space.
Right.
Okay, now scroll down. It says, receptacles installed for countertops and work surfaces as specified in 210.52c shall not be considered as receptacle outlets required by 210.52a, which means in your kitchen, you have countertops that have receptacle outlets that are required.
Right.
You can't count those as filling
As your
the
wall
need for
space
A.
requirement. Exactly.
Now you need
Now
two.
the light came on.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. And we just added that language. And I said, so it was funny on the code panel. They said they rejected it. And I said, I'm fine with that. As long as you are supporting 2 receptacles in the kitchen, one for the countertop and one, I guess you're going to put it in the floor for the wall space. So you need one for each. And then I got a blank stares. And then the one individual goes, Tom, we've never done that, and we've not done this for years. And I'm like, I know, but there's new language in 2023. And I said, if you read that, this is what we're requiring. But nobody does it. But that's what we're requiring. So then I can't remember his name, from Massachusetts, put a public comment in to fix it in a different area within 210.52. And then we rejected that one. And I said, okay, this is the second guy. And then there was a third guy who was trying to fix the same issue. And then finally, I think it clicked for the right people. And then I think it was Alan looked over and he says, hey, what was that PC number of yours? We're going to reopen it. And we fixed it. It. Yes, but the 2023 would require in your kitchen 2 receptacles. I'm like, that's not what we meant. But we got happy. Remember when Panel 2 added countertops and similar work surfaces? And we got slap happy and just put it a bunch of places where I don't think it belonged, and that was one of them. Yeah. So, but we addressed that concern.
It's going to be exciting this year for the IAEI in the analysis program.
Yes.
It's going to be. We've been working on it already.
We're working on it already. There's a lot of changes. I heard someone say, well, there weren't that many changes in the 2026.
I thought that during the first draft that, it's kind of a weak cycle for changes, but the more you look at it, there's quite a few changes.
110.16, the 210.52 stuff,
The 230/70.
230/70.
Hopefully 230/46.
Yeah, and then 230/82. We're going to a list format, which
Yeah.
I think is going to. You know what the list format's going to do?
Expose it.
It is going to slap you in the face that you've got a problem. It's going to go. You're going to go read it and go, wait a second. You know what they're saying here? I can put a service ahead of a service. It's a service. Doesn't make sense.
Our graphics are going to be different too, right?
Yes, definitely. We've got some extra talent working on some good graphics. So I am.
I think this could be one of the best analysis books that we've
Yes.
made in a long time.
Absolutely right.
And again, the graphics nowadays is so much better than what.
Oh,
we had for
absolutely.
years.
It's going to be good graphics, and I think I think that, in my opinion, I know we're going to have this discussion. Remember last year we had the philosophy, and I remember Rudy showing, oh, look, this little booklet. I think we need the commentary.
We need some meat.
We need meat, and I don't think it's bad to have a small, cheap book, like Cliff Notes.
Sure.
I don't think it's wrong to have that. We may sell a lot of those.
Yeah.
But I think we need the commentary to help people understand
Yeah.
the reason we are where we're at.
And I think that's why they used to buy our books quite a bit, because it had
Yeah.
a lot of good commentary based on what's occurred during the first and second draft meetings.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely right. Keith
really need
Laughlin
to
wrote a
explain
lot
that.
of that and came
Yeah.
from a lot of our code panel members. So I think we're going to have a very good book. I know we're going to have a very good book because I'm just looking at
You got a
the
few good
slides.
people working on it,
and we
too.
have some. We have the best in the industry working on it.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion. So. All right.
a lot of good people involved.
We have a lot of really good people involved, even outside of the organization that are involved with other organizations. They're still IAEI members, but they are heavily involved with other organizations that are helping contribute to our success. And Felix says, "It ain't gonna happen." He likes that.
On what?
when I
when you said,
I said
okay.
it ain't gonna happen. I love it. All right, so we have been going for over an hour, I believe.
10:07.
We've been 108:17. So,
Well, that's right.
yeah. So, everybody out there, we really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, David.
Yep, glad to be here.
I'm glad.
Thanks for all the work you do with the IAEI Newsline.
And right back at you. You do a lot of work for the board and other areas. People don't know the work that you and others do to help bring good content, good technical content, and direction to our code-making panel members and the books and all of our resources. So thank you for what you do, brother.
Glad to help.
And thanks to everybody out there for watching, tuning in, and in partaking in the festivities.
Live from California.
Live from LA. It's
Well,
NEC 2026.
Torrance, Redondo Beach, whatever the case
Yes.
is.
I flew into LAX, so it's LA.
I do too, yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Jake Riddle. Look at that. There we go. See, I can put the Facebook ones up because I'm streaming straight to Facebook, but I'm going through Restream to get to the others. So, Felix, thank you. Thank you, sir. He says, thank you, Tom and David. It's been an interesting review and very key items on the NEC. So, thank you. And Brian Kroll, Andrew Kasney, Travis Holderman, Robert from Omaha, David Englehart, Felix Sandoval. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Stay safe, and we will see you maybe during the week. I might try to go live on IAEI during the week, but otherwise, stay safe and stay healthy. See you next week.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Be safe.